Use the question tab to ask your questions or to upvote your favorite questions from other attendees. You can also answer polling questions under polls to give your live vote. Our analysts and panel speakers will be addressing your questions and the polling answers during the live stream. Ask your questions early in the presentation, as our analysts will choose the most upvoted questions to be addressed by the session speakers. If you have any questions during the stream about SwapCard, our team is standing by to help. Just drop a message in the chat or message one of Parks Associates team members via the Parks Associates company page. We want to make sure you're connecting with our industry-leading sponsors in the smart home space. You can visit any sponsor during the session by navigating to the Sponsors tab, browse sponsors, or bookmark the ones that interest you for later. Contact the sponsor via chat, view uploaded documents, watch welcome videos, and more. Have you created your personal event agenda on SwapCard? Go to the Agenda tab, view different sessions under each date, add the sessions that interest you to your personal event agenda. You can access your personal event agenda by clicking the My Event tab. Export your agenda to your calendar to receive reminders and a direct link to your registered sessions. Welcome to the Connections community. My name is Elizabeth Parks and I'm the president of Parks Associates, a market research and consulting firm focused on emerging consumer technologies. Since 1986, we've been looking closely at emerging products in the home for consumers, consumer devices and services like home security and automation, connected entertainment, connected health, and broadband services in the home. This year would have been our 24th year to host our signature event, Connections, the premier connected home conference. We would also be hosting our 15th annual Connections Europe event in November in Amsterdam. It's an enormous disappointment that we can't host our live in-person events. We know how big a role they play in networking, visibility for leading players in the smart home space, and interacting with our analyst team and key players. In place of these live events, we are bringing you the Connections community, a virtual experience that will take place through the end of November. We will be live streaming our analysts, industry leaders, and hosting panel discussions through the SwapCard platform, where attendees can log in for live viewing, view past recorded sessions, and interact with fellow Connections community participants. We want to thank our sponsors of our events, many whom have supported our efforts for years. This year's sponsors include Sutherland, Alarm.com, Bitdefender, Cox, IntelliThings, Cerent, Everrise, MMB Networks, ServiceLive, Zen Ecosystems, FireDome, Inspire Energy, Z-Wave Alliance, April Air, Gagion, Sprosty Network, and YCharge. We really are striving to bring individuals together to network and communicate about the important issues our industries are facing, particularly as we all navigate the new way to accomplish things. Our Connections community platform allows for a live stream view and conversations with our community members. You can ask questions, chat with the group, chat with individuals, and even have a video meeting spontaneously with community members. Following the session, we will have open networking discussions on video for more dialogue with our analyst team and community members. For our first session, we heard from industry leaders talking about new opportunities to expand smart home adoption in MDUs. Andrew Beach, Vice President of Technology from Mill Creek Residential, provided our visionary comments, and then our Director of Research, Brad Russell, shared some of Parks Associates' latest data, followed by a discussion including Google, Greystar, SmartRent, and Stratus. We are really excited about our upcoming sessions focused on energy management in the home, the impact of connectivity in cars, smart home and health services, support of consumer devices in the home network, and privacy and security issues. These virtual experiences lead up to 3 days of networking fun, hosted November 10th through the 12th, where Parks Associates will present new data and moderate discussions on the state of the smart home market, the value in elevated user experiences, monitoring and expansion beyond security systems, smart home platforms, seniors and technology, and the impact of new technologies focused on proactive and predictive analytics, as well as the impact of 5G and Wi-Fi 6. We are proud to bring together over 750 executives so far, with more members joining daily, and we look forward to your feedback. For any comments or interest in participating within the Connections community as a sponsor or speaker, please feel free to reach out to me or any of the Parks Associates team members. Thank you for being part of the Connections community. We hope you enjoy the panel and visionary insight beginning soon. The live stream will be starting soon, and we encourage everyone to join us in the chat box to the right of the stream. Use the question tab to ask your questions or to upvote your favorite questions from other attendees. You can also answer polling questions under polls to give your live vote. Our analysts and panel speakers will be addressing your questions and the polling answers during the live stream. Ask your questions early in the presentation, as our analysts will choose the most upvoted questions to be addressed by the session speakers. If you have any questions during the stream about SwapCard, our team is standing by to help. Just drop a message in the chat or message one of Parks Associates team members via the Parks Associates company page. Thank you for joining the session. We will be going live in just a few moments.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third in our series of Connections community events leading up to our virtual event in November. We've got a great amount of information to share with you today. We have an incredible visionary speaker. We have a great panel. And then, as Elizabeth mentioned earlier in her video, please join us for our network discussions. Like I said, this is our third in our series, and we've had some great networking discussions that'll start at 12:30 Central Time today, and really give you that opportunity to continue the discussion, meet participants, and share ideas and connect with others throughout our community. So please take care. Please join us for that. I've got just a few quick housekeeping details to take care of. First off, please ask questions. Use the questions tab in the SmartCard application. There's also a chat tab, but use the questions tab to provide us with questions, and we'll do our best to answer those questions as we progress through our session. We're going to have 2 polling questions, and I know that some people have already started answering the polling questions, and that's great. If you will take a look at those polling questions, and I'll remind you again, and answer those polling questions as we go through our presentations this morning or today. For those of you who are not in the morning, we will give some feedback on the answers to those questions. So please take a look at those. If you're interested about learning more about Parks Associates, please let us know. We are here and happy to help. And again, join us at the end of the 12:30 for our networking sessions. Let's start off quickly by, again, thanking our sponsors. Elizabeth has already listed them out, but we want to say thank you. We can't do this without our sponsors. So please take the time in the SwapCard application to check out our sponsors and visit their booths and their presentations that they have available. So we're going to kick off today, with some quick analyst insights that I will be providing for you. My name is David Drury. I'm a research director at Parks Associates, and I have a long background in research and data analytics. So our agenda today is going to be, we had a quick welcome. We'll go through analyst insights. Then we've got a fabulous visionary insights presentation that will follow my my presentation, and then a great panel to deep dive and discuss topics. And again, don't forget our post-session networking discussions, very important. So let's dive right in. What I want to start with today is a quick look at the COVID-19 crisis, its impact on the general economy and our consumers, as well as take a look at how it's connected, how it has impacted the connected car sector. So, call it what you want: unprecedented, astounding, extraordinary, never before. Pick your phrase. It's clear we're living in new times. Parks Associates has conducted 2 surveys since we've entered this COVID crisis, and we've been able to collect a significant amount of data about consumers' changes in habits, changes in buying, changes in spending based on the COVID crisis. And I'll share a little bit of that with you as we move forward. The first thing to note is that 93% of US broadband households have made significant changes in their lifestyle. And we're all part of that, and we all understand how serious this is, but that is a huge number. And it's hard to imagine that our households, our US population has done such a great job of changing their lifestyles to help stop the spread and the infections of COVID-19. Along with that, we've had a real high of growth in cost consciousness. Consumers are facing record high unemployment and are really focusing on the necessities that need to be purchased. And a lot of the non-essentials have gone by the wayside. Companies are changing the way they interact with their customers. The ability for companies to provide services and products to customers in a touchless and contactless context has become huge and will continue to be so. And that is certainly something from the connected cars and smart home side of the equation that will need to continue. We're in the midst of the second wave of COVID-19. Uncertainty is still abound. There are lots of questions that we still don't have answered. And in a period of questions and uncertainty, it is not a good mix and a good ingredients for recovery and getting back to normal, if there even is a normal. The social environment that we're in today is going to continue to drive cutbacks in spending. And it's reasonable to expect that consumers are going to continue to practice these far-reaching lifestyles that they've adopted well into 2021 and beyond. So one of the things that's really interesting from the survey work that we do, and we did a survey in May and July, and we are about to field another survey as we speak. So we really had our thumb on the pulse of households in the US and consumers. But one of the really interesting things that we're seeing, and it's not terribly surprising, is that there is COVID-19 is becoming very personal. In the last couple of months, the percentage of households that know someone who has or had COVID-19 has increased from 35% to 39%. So it is really becoming a much more personal ordeal. Questions still are abound. Is it safe to send our children back to school? Is it safe to go back to work? And we're living that today in a day-to-day process of trying to understand what we should and shouldn't be doing. So there are some economic hardships, and there are sectors that have been impacted really, really severely with the crisis and with the cuts in spending. But there are some sectors that are actually doing well. For instance, online entertainment services and electronics and computers all show high intentions for purchasing in the next 6 months. Going back to, we have this huge percent of our population working remotely at home, and a large number of our school children being educated at home. And I don't know if you've tried recently, but if you have looked for a bicycle in the last 6 months, and then you've been able to find one, you're one of the lucky people. So it's interesting that we've got some of these niche services that have really, really taken off during the COVID crisis. So, as I mentioned before, the crisis has led to some long-term behavioral changes. And as we have checked with consumers through our survey work and communicated with them, they're telling us that there are a number of behaviors that they expect that will continue long into the future, into 2021 for sure, and definitely beyond that as well. Still of huge concern is the ability to avoid large gatherings of people. That concern is up to 44% from 39% from May to July of this year. And it has some very, very long reaching consequences. In our survey, the definition for a large group of people is 10. So if you think about, some of the things that we just normally do, whether it be get on public transportation, whether it be go to the office, whether it's go to a movie theater, that number of people and the need for our consumers to stay isolated is huge. And as we've all seen, is continuing to have a huge impact on our consumers and our economy. It's not over. The impacts of COVID-19 are going to linger, especially with the second wave of COVID that we've had in the last several weeks. This graph was put together with data that was collected in July, excuse me. And as I said before, we just are in the process of fielding a new survey as we speak today. And this graph did show a little bit of loosening up of consumer and households' expectations of re-engaging in activity. But we absolutely expect that we'll see that expectation be pushed out even further into the future with this second wave of COVID that we've just had starting to push in on us. So again, this is going to be a long haul. So let's talk just a little bit about the impact on the connected car sector specifically. So like many sectors in many industries, the connected car sector is getting a double hit from the COVID-19 crisis. We're having a really serious social impact as well as an economic impact that is really putting up some challenges to the connected car sector. We've talked about this need to shelter in place and maintain social distancing. We've got a huge number of our population working from home. We have travel that has been canceled and is not taking place. We don't have consumers commuting at this point in time to a great extent. And still a lot of apprehension, all of which is putting some serious challenges into the work that's being done in the connected car sector and leading to this economic impact. We still have high unemployment. We've seen a little bit of improvement in the employment sector, but still we have a huge number of households that are unemployed. Our households have made spending cuts. Consumer confidence is down. And we're just in the midst of this broad economic slowdown, all of which is leading to a drop in transportation demand, big investment challenges for organizations. At the moment, most organizations are trying to figure out how they survive, how they maintain their bottom line, and really cut back on a lot of the non-essential things that they need to do. We're having an uptick in single occupancy vehicle usage with the need to, keep social distancing in place. We're seeing technology cutbacks, and we're seeing testing that has been suspended in a lot of the organizations as a result of the COVID. But there are things that are going great for the connected car, or at least showing some improvements. In the past several weeks, there have been some great examples of connected car technology making a difference during the COVID crisis. General Motors Cruise has made a number of contactless deliveries in the San Francisco area, helping out the food banks of their community. And the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, Florida is using autonomous vehicles to transport test samples to be analyzed in a contactless method. So that's a little bit about COVID. Let me switch and go through just a couple of points on 5G, security integration, and electric vehicles. And while I'm making this switch, if we've got a minute, let's look at some of the results of our poll questions. So it looks like what are the most compelling value propositions that 5G will enable in the automotive sector? Enhancing vehicle safety with 20% is high up there, with autonomous driving being the big answer to this question, with 47% of your responses indicating that 5G is going to be a great enabler in this sector. So with that, let's look at 5G real quickly. So 5G is the next big thing in user experiences and connected car technology. It's going to enable a low latency that is absolutely needed, and much faster speeds that are needed to do the type of computations that need to be done for autonomous driving, excuse me. One of the interesting things that we're seeing with 5G is that there's still need for education of the public about 5G. There is still at least getting towards 50% of our households that really are not familiar with 5G and don't understand what the value proposition and what the features that 5G are going to bring to them in their life are. And I can tell you from my neighborhood, as 5G antennas started to go up in the past couple of weeks, our neighbors and community had no idea what those antennas were and were really worried about why they were going up. Also of note is that this is a huge sector with lots of opportunity. There are 285 million registered vehicles in the United States. Of those, 169 million are actively connected cars. There are 125 million non-connected cars that are a great opportunity for aftermarket opportunities as we move forward. And very important to remember is that 56% of our households find it very important that the next device they purchase work with many different products and many different services. From the connected car and connected home perspective, we've got a great case that is ready to be made. We've got a very high interest in vehicle monitoring being connected to home monitoring. 41% of home security owners are interested in vehicle monitoring. And more importantly, they're willing to pay for it. 42% of security system owners are willing to pay an extra $10 a month to integrate vehicle monitoring into their home security system. So one example of the great news that we've got in that sector. Electric vehicles are going to be very important as we move forward as well. We're starting to see a slow continuation of interest and purchase intention in electric vehicles. And as you might expect, electric vehicles are focused, purchases and intention, ownership is focused in the West. So there's some great opportunities in electric vehicles and integration with home technology and battery usage. And then to wrap it up, and I'm going to rely on one of our panelists to really give us some additional information, is this willingness of change that our consumers have, especially based on the COVID-19 crisis. And that the fact that we can start to provide solutions that help them manage the way they use energy, manage their smart devices in their home, including, or their smart energy devices in their home, including their electric vehicles, is very important and something that we'll discuss further. So I'm going to wrap it up there, and we're going to shift to our visionary insight, connectivity in the car, the present and the future. You can expect just a little bit of a wait as our team transitions us over to Jay Thatali, who is the head of marketing for Nokia Technology. We're really happy to have Jay join us. Jay's got some great insight that he's going to share with us, and then we'll talk to Jay a little bit about his insight after his presentation with some Q&A. So.
So hello everyone. Can you hear me well? I'll take that as a yes. So hope you all are staying safe and healthy, both mentally and physically, in these unprecedented times. Yes, as David was mentioning, I could not put up a nice picture because I could not outdo what David was showing. Like, he was really handsome in that, so I couldn't outdo it. I'm Jay Tatil, and I head the marketing for Nokia Technologies. And in this session, I'm focusing on the connectivity aspect within vehicles and what is driving or impacting our future of mobility. So let's go to the slides. Let me start with a little bit of a history in sense of like how it all started and where it all went. On the left, what you are seeing, let me just put this, yeah. On the left, you are seeing what somebody's vision around what connected cars could be doing. This is from an article on 1956 where people are talking about one day your car may speed along an electric highway, its speed and steering automatically controlled by electronic devices embedded in the road. Travel will be more enjoyable. Highways will be made safer by electricity. No traffic jams, no collisions, no driver fatigue. I don't know about the later things, but this was the vision in 1956. And you could see like how it has been translating, right? So in 2017, on the right, you can see this has been picked up again. So the connected car, we have not reached the fully autonomous yet as a whole consumers, users of connected cars. There are certain cars doing it, but not all of them it has not come into the mainstream per se. But then happened year 2020. Where are we now with this, right? It turned out to be very extraordinary. And given the situation we are in, it is a bit odd to talk about mobility, especially when most governments advise not to get out of your house if you don't need to. But technological advancement, it rarely slows down, and the pandemic is nothing compared to the will of the people and the advancement that we are trying to make. So this is the same case with connected vehicles. So let's look into some stats. These are some stats that has been predicted before 2020, right? Gartner forecasted then that 4 out of 5 cars built in 2020 will be connected to the internet. And internet connection is becoming a standard option these days, right? Moving from a very premium that we used to pay for that particular service. There are 250 million connected vehicles worldwide in 2020. And you saw the figures from David's research, how it is multiplying in the US alone, right? So you can see like how far it is going to go worldwide. Then we have the softwares and sensors. We used to look at cars and say like, hey, this is a great engine. This is how fast it will go. This is how it turns the corner. Let's get this one. It's gone. It's more about like, what is the kind of technology that you have, how shiny the screens are, what can you do with those? So it's a perfect marriage of, let's say, technophile and a petrol head that is happening in connected cars these days. Continental is talking about 90 electronic control units, 170 sensors, 150 actuators as a part of the car, right? And Volkswagen is saying that 50% of the vehicle's value will be in software by 2020, which is actually going further to 90% in the next couple of years. Then we have the demand for contextual information, how people are monetizing the connected car information, the images that you are getting, and the kind of telematics and the geolocation data that you can get, how different companies are trying to monetize those. So this is something that is happening, or it's already there, but the consumers are not fully exploiting those benefits yet. Right? This is from a survey that we did this year, the beginning of this year, trying to understand what is the implication of 5G applications with consumers. And we found that 68% of the vehicle owners use some kind of assistive driving tech today. And you can see on the right, what are the key ones, right? Voice calls, navigation, maps, music, radio streaming. But then there are other areas where Wi-Fi hotspot, diagnosis, emergency services, driver behavior analytics, these are being used, but it is not used widely, purely because it is also a premium service. You need to pay for it, or you need to subscribe to this. But partly also people don't understand how these need to be utilized. So there is a huge potential for connectivity in car that can push the consumer to use connected cars more often. And I see like 2 or 3 trends that is kind of accelerating this, right? And the first one, David already talked about that, it's 5G. It's an advancement in cellular connectivity. So again, I go back to Gartner as an analyst. By 2023, the automotive industry is predicted to be the largest market opportunity for 5G and IoT solution. And I'm not going to go into 5G technology in detail. However, 2 key things that can help the industry massively, right? Speed, or the low latency, and the throughput. The connectivity is instant with a latency of milliseconds, and it is important for vehicular safety. And the number of data, or the bits that you can download per second, is in gigas, right? So gigabits. So you can download a movie within seconds. So these 2, the speed or the low latency and the throughput, combines to give some great use cases for connected vehicles. Of course, a large scope would be the road awareness and safety, as David was also mentioning from his research, right? You need connectivity for more advanced use cases where the sensors are not close enough, because the cars are already laden with sensors. But if you want to know a car coming from far away, where the proximity sensors won't work, you need the cellular connectivity to transmit that to the mass and the traffic signals to make sure that the cars are receiving enough information so that you can avoid a collision or a hazard, right? So this is going really huge with 5G. But it's not just that. I mean, you talk about connected cars, it is not just cars. It is also trucks, ambulances, drones, flight, planes, trains, connected bikes even, right? So there is like a lot of vehicles that you need to look into, but I won't get into the details of that, but there are certain cases you talk about. Ambulance, for example, you can diagnose a patient en route to the hospital in an ambulance with the doctor at the hospital trying to do certain work on the patient, diagnose what are the key issues, feel his heartbeat, and prescribing what needs to be done to the paramedic in the ambulance. Platooning is where we save space and traffic with fleets, so that a group of vehicles can, which are close to each other, in sync with the speed, again avoiding traffic jams. Infotainment, downloading movies I already spoke about. Emergency alerts, and so the possibilities are endless, and it does look bright for autonomous cars from that perspective. And then you see like what different automobile manufacturers are doing, right? You can see Volvo, they are talking about V2V, or Volvo to Volvo, where when a Volvo detects a hazard and an emergency, it can relay the message to other Volvo. You can see like Volkswagen, Ford, Audi, etc., are all trying to latch onto this technological advancement and use that, the information that they share with other cars, and how to make the customer experience even better. And BMW and Samsung are good examples where they can, they are integrating with the SmartThings, and they're talking about bringing 5G on to BMW cars by 2021. And the iNext car, if you follow automotive shows or automobile shows, you can see like how responsive the iNext cars or the iNext series cars from BMW, with full immersive screens and more sensitive and responsive to the customer needs. Then we talk about the second bit, which is the voice. And according to research from Capgemini Research Institute, about half of the consumers use in-vehicle voice assistants today, right? But that number is expected to reach 95% by 2022. And you can see like more than 75% are looking or making the voice assistants a key decision-making point when they are looking to buy automobiles. Now they're using the voice assistants to play music, check directions, access other in-car functions, even stretching to the theme that we want to talk about today is including integrating with the at-home voice systems, right, to have seamless integration. And when we talk about the voice assistants, I would say like an Amazon Alexa has done a big job or a big leap compared to Siri and Google Assistant. Of course, they are all integrated in there, but this has gone a seamless integration. And according to Amazon, there are 15 automaker brands that are using Alexa for remote vehicle management today, including the BMWs, the Hyundais, Mercedes-Benz. And they do have proprietary solutions as well, right? Like Mercedes, for example, they have their MBUX infotainment system, which can be triggered by Hey Mercedes. BMW using the ID, BMW ID. And of course, they complement the Alexa. Even the EV manufacturer, electric vehicle manufacturer, Rivian, is also talking about how they are integrating Alexa for some of the functions. So if you see the automakers, it's from the niche or the smaller ones to relatively global big conglomerates are all latching onto these voice assistants as the next one. And then we see a bit more on the integration. You want to control your home devices from your car. And this is where we are heading to, right? And there are already many apps and collaborations that we see today integrating the management of home devices to the car dashboard. Again, I bring in Samsung and Samsung, the SmartThings, and BMW. And there is another, Renault and Otoro. These are the ones who are talking about how I want to control the heater of my home from my car. If I'm coming back from the office, you say like I'm with a flick of a touch these days, you can say that I'm coming home, and you get the home cleaned using your smart vacuum cleaner. You can operate your smart kettle and be ready with the brew while you park your car and walk from the garage opening and closing of the doors, right? These are all done from the car, as well as integrating it to the voice assistant. This make it much more easier to implement. Then we have the other way where we are trying to get or manage the car from home, and BMW's connected mirror. And again, remember, like, these are not new things. This has been around for a while. They've been talking about this. Here with the mirror, it's a cloud-based system where you can understand what your car needs to do, what is the route you want to take, and when you're ready, your car senses that, and it can come out of your garage and park on your driveway, so you can jump in and go. So this integration is still happening. Of course, it is very early stage in terms of the home connectivity and the car integration, smart home. And 5G is a key enabler, again, trying to bring that all together. But are we there yet? There are certain elements that is standing in the way. The ecosystem around connected automotives, right? These are the car manufacturers, the road operators, the telecommunications. All these need to come together to do this. Right now, they do have proprietary solutions. We saw Volvo to Volvo, but we don't see Volvo to BMW interactions. So it needs to come to that way so that it can go mainstream. They need to make sure they use the same platforms, they use the same communication standards, they use the similar technology, and they need to have a unified view of where this is heading. And the regulators need to support that. Imagine a car coming to a signal and the signal is not responding to the car, then it doesn't work. So you need to have the proper standards and technology consistent with what we are trying to push in. Then another part is the security aspect, right? It is huge. We saw a few years back, with Wired and two hackers, how they tried to hack into the Jeep and took control of the Jeep and driving faster on a motorway, and how dangerous it was. Of course, they had to spend several years studying the car and trying to push this, but it was difficult to watch. And imagine that's happening to you. And we have seen enough movies to believe in these things, right? And the hackability aspect goes higher if you look into the home devices, where the security is also very, very important. And this is what we need to get around. And the final part I would say is the demand needs to be coming from the customer. The customer is the one who is driving it rather than technology pushing it. You don't want to be distracted by all these beeps and the sirens that you get when you are in the car. You need to be very focused in terms of this you want to drive. We have not reached the fully autonomous vehicles mainstream yet, but this is the simple steps that we need to do to reach there. And the technology is ripe, the ecosystem is ready, and it's just the research that need to push through and get the demand in place. With that, I conclude my short presentation. Hopefully there's some wisdom in there after all the hype that David put in. I hope there is something that you could take away. Over to you, David.
Jay, thank you. And there is wisdom in there. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your knowledge on this subject. It's really great to have you. Let's follow up with just a couple of questions, if we could, quickly. Let's start with, what are you seeing as the biggest challenge in integrating all of the different systems that need to come together to make this ecosystem work? I mean, it's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, I think standardization is a key aspect, right? I see standardization and security where even the IoT technology, what is that you want to use, the LiDAR, or how the NB-IoT works with LiDAR technology, and 5G, for example, if you look at 5G to the home, even 5G, you have plenty of different millimeter wave, the 22 hertz. You really need to get the right frequency band. There needs to be an agreement, this is the standard that we want to use. And 5G, the challenge we have is the standards are still being evolving, especially with connected cars. You see several pilots, but it is not there yet in the mainstream out there with 5G cars running. So it's going to take a couple of years, I would say, to go mainstream with that.
Got it. So kind of playing off that just a little bit, standardization obviously is going to be a huge issue. How about the connection between OME branded solutions like voice solutions that need to fit in with that plethora of solutions that are already available outside from the other parties?
Yeah, and this is where the aftermakers coming into the picture, right? I mean, Pioneer has integrated Android Auto. I'm taking as an example, and Google. Android and Google, I'm saying it's the same thing. It's CarPlay, Apple CarPlay. This has been integrated. So aftermakers can play a big role in terms of bringing this ecosystem together. And this is a clear opportunity for them to make sure these big providers can be integrated and they have a clear play in terms of getting that seamless. And Amazon Alexa is another one, right? Where you can put on the top, you can have seamless integration from smart speaker at home to the one in the car. So yeah, this is a great play for aftermakers as well.
Got it. One more quick question, that as I assume that many of our participants are kind of on the inside and can see some of the things behind the curtains. But for those of us who are not in there and looking behind the curtains, what are a couple of examples of things that we can see with this new 5G technology and some of these integrations that will come in this next round of new vehicles that we'll see in 2022?
Yeah, autonomous vehicle, I would say it's far-fetched, but safety aspect, right? Right now, yes, we do have sensors which can tell you a car is very near you, you're crossing the road. But with 5G, what you can do is because cellular connectivity is so fast that when you're turning, there is a pedestrian coming from the other end and there is something blocking. And those sort of information, you can have video analytics which can clearly give you instruction, there's a pedestrian on the blind spot which you cannot see, who's far away, but if you turn at this particular speed, it will go. And it can slow down the car based on that, right?
Sure.
It is to that extent. I see road safety is one of the key elements. And then we talked about infotainment. I know you don't get into a car to watch a movie, but anyone with kids know without something like that, it is really difficult to go long distance. And this is flick of a button, you get the movie there. You can watch it, right? And there's no it's not downloading. You don't see that circle going around and around. It speeds up things. I would say those two are the key element. And then there are wider goods about the connected ambulance and things that we talked about. But these two I see as the two immediate things. And this is where they're focusing at the moment as well.
Perfect. Jay, we can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your insights and your participation. Invite you to stick around, and if you can, join our discussions a little bit later on. But thank you again, and we really appreciate your input.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thanks.
Absolutely. Jay, have a great day. So next up, we're going to move to our panel. And I think it's going to take us just a minute to get our panel lined up and get everybody onto the screen. So hang with us for just a minute here. Hopefully you don't have to look at me the whole time, but our technical crew is getting the panel up on screen and getting this ready. So be with us for just a minute. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. So we have been able to, I know, gather up 3 of our 4 panelists. We still may be short a panelist, and hopefully he will continue to connect back on. But let's go ahead and get started with our discussions, and we'll move on from there. So we've got a great panel lined up for you, and I'm not going to go through formal introductions with them, but I'm going to let each of them have just a minute to talk to you about who they are, what their expertise is, and what their company does. So Tony, if we could, let's start with you. Give us a brief introduction. And I know the connected car sector is large, so give us a little bit of information about where you fit and what your expertise is, if you would, please. Thanks, Tony.
Sure, thanks. And thanks for the opportunity to talk to the folks today in the panel. My name is Tony Frangioso. I'm the president and CEO here at InstallaNet. InstallaNet is a business that helps enable enterprise level partners to take devices both for the home and the car that are allow them to now be able to scale, that require some sort of challenge based on installation, and allows them to scale their business up by getting these products installed in vehicles and in homes across the country. And we've built a platform and a nationwide network that allows us to connect the consumer with the area provider and manage that transaction throughout the process, so that it helps them get their products and devices into the marketplace, whether in vehicle or in home. InstallaNet as a business has been around for nearly 15 years. We started in the automotive sector, and still continued and expanded into the home probably about 5, 6, 7 years ago, and have seen a lot of interest and crossover into the 2 categories. Although the consumer demand isn't quite there with a lot of this technology, no doubt there's going to be devices that will be installed in the home that will interact with the vehicle and vice versa. And especially when you look at the space in the automotive sector of, I think we reported 280 million registered cars, with only 15 million new cars sold each year. It will take about 18, 19, 20 years to meet the consumer demand for this technology if we have to wait for everybody to buy a new car. So there has to be a solution for understanding this latest technology and finding a way to integrate it into the vehicles that are already on the road. And that's a task that InstallaNet has signed up for.
Great, thank you. We're looking forward to bringing you in and starting our conversation with you. Let's move on, and Stellan, if you'll please give us an introduction. Hi, glad to see you again.
Hi, Chris.
Again, give us just a bit of where you fit into the picture and what you guys bring to the table at Ericsson, please.
Okay, yeah, so thank you again for the opportunity to be a part of this panel today. So Ericsson, we are the world leader in mobile networks, and we recently launched and reached a milestone where we signed our 100th 5G contract with the mobile operators worldwide. And just to give you a feeling for how big we are, today we manage about 2 billion subscribers for our customers. I do represent our connected vehicle team here in North America, and we have about 4.6 million vehicles connected to our platform today, where customers like Volvo and Geely in China are using our platform. The slide that's up on the screen right now is we also do a lot of consumer research to look at where are the next 5G trends and use cases for 5G. And things, you see a link there as well that you can reach and go and read the full report. But what we see right now is a lot of video demands from customers and voice assist, and that will also help drive 5G. So I'll stop there.
Great, thank you so much. We are so glad to have you. Next up, we've got Emily. Emily, if you'll give us a quick introduction as well, and fill us in on your expertise and your background and what your organization does, please. No, I think we're missing the audio for you, Emily. Give us just a minute to see if we can bring you up. We've got our technical crew taking a look at this real quick. Okay.
Haas is here. Do you want to go back to him?
Yeah.
Okay.
You ready?
Mhm.
So we're gonna give just a minute to Emily and see if we can't get her connected. So Haas, let's bring you in and get you to give us a little information about yourself. It's good to see you again, and we're glad to have you today.
Absolutely. Can you guys hear me all right?
You bet, we've got you.
Wonderful. Well, hey, just want to introduce myself. My name is Sahas. I'm the CEO and co-founder of SmartCar.com. We're a company based in Mountain View, California. And first off, thanks so much for having us on the webinar today. But I can give you a quick rundown on us. We started the company about 5 years ago, and we started SmartCar really because we found that a lot of companies were finding it really challenging to build applications for cars. None of the car brands really had a friendly developer portal or documentation or SDKs, and we realized that there was a gap in the market, and we set out to solve it. Today, Smart Cars platform is compatible with about 60 million cars on the road in the United States. It's compatible with 19 car brands, and we're supporting a variety of different industries from auto insurers, car sharing companies, and both car rental and peer-to-peer, as well as energy and utility companies, and not to mention even fleets who are trying to build applications to connect with vehicles. And I'm definitely excited to continue our conversation around AI, 5G, and the smart home. And I think that they are all starting to tie in more and more together than ever before.
Awesome, Haas. Thank you so much. We are sure happy to have you with us. And let's see, I'm looking at our crew in the studio. Do we have Emily up? I'm going to try to see if we can pull Emily up again.
Try it again.
Emily, we have you. Hi, how are you?
Great. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. We're delighted to have you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. My name is Emily Tullis. I'm the VP of Product at Uplight for our demand management solution. So Uplight is a company focusing on providing utilities with engagement opportunities and energy management opportunities for both residential and non-residential, so C&I customers. So we are really working our way into the connected space from the standpoint of managing the charging of EVs and looking at how EVs as batteries can be kind of a shared utility asset and customer asset. So lots of customer engagement elements there, but lots of really interesting nuts to crack around different types of data that are available, how a customer might interact with that device relative to how a utility would interact with that device. So taking some of the smart thermostat programs that we've done in the past and kind of extending or extrapolating those into the EV space. For me, it's particularly interesting because my background is in automotive. I've worked at both Ford and Toyota. So it's been really interesting to watch the evolution of vehicles going from kind of, a method of conveyance into a rolling computer that does so much more.
Awesome, Emily. We're excited to have you, and thank you for joining us. And I'm glad we got you back. So let me start our discussion with the panel with a quick question. And Tony, I'm going to throw this out to get us started, if you don't mind. So I spoke earlier about the impact of COVID-19, the big elephant in the room, and how it's impacting consumers and consumer behavior. It's obviously having a big impact on connected cars and smart homes as well. We've got virtual work, which means less travel time. We've got shared spaces because of health concerns that are no longer valid. And, there is some safety concern that's going on with the COVID crisis as well. So give us your thoughts on where we are and where we might go. I know you don't have a crystal ball, but let's get some insight from you on this, please.
Sure. I think as we look at the connected car space and the impact COVID has had on it, as it was said before, the travel time and the use in the vehicle has gone down. Believe it or not, some of the safety aspects and risks have stayed the same or increased. I don't know if it's because people are just driving faster, thinking that there are less vehicles on the road. But I think it's a tough one. It's impacted everybody's life in so many different ways. I think the connected car space is still at its infancy that I don't know that there's been such a big impact. I think some companies have certainly figured out how to take advantage of that connected environment and in the vehicle and do some things that they would otherwise not do. But my default would be it's still too early to tell, both on a category that's still in its infancy, and something that's just come out of left field to try to figure out how to pull all these things together. I think that whatever the end result ends up being, or what everybody calls this new normal, no doubt that the connected car is going to play a role in that as well going forward.
Yeah, agreed. Awesome. And yeah, I'm with you. It's a difficult time to predict the future, but we can certainly see the signs that it is going to become a more important player as we move into the new normal, as you said. So Haas, let's get your input on this. What are your thoughts around this?
Yeah, absolutely. So we definitely have a lot of metadata around how the mobility space is currently using cars and how car usage has shifted over the course of the last maybe 6 months as we pre-COVID, as the COVID situation emerged, and then now afterwards. And we have customers in the car rental space and peer-to-peer car sharing space across both European and American geographies. And we found some very interesting shifts. A lot of car rental and peer-to-peer car sharing companies offer car rentals in two different ways. One is an old-fashioned traditional way where you need to meet an attendant, get a physical key, or meet the vehicle owner in a peer-to-peer model to get the key from them before you can rent a vehicle. And since this whole COVID-19 situation has emerged, we've seen a massive uptick in acceleration from consumers, specifically booking cars and experiences where they can do a digital virtual pickup, where right from their smartphone they can unlock the doors to the car. They don't need to go to a front desk. They don't need to meet a car owner at their home. They're able to just get into the car they want, unlock it, rent it, and leave. And that shift is good for multiple reasons. It's not just a better experience, regardless, but it's also great for mitigating the spread of COVID-19. And we've now seen a lot of our customers accelerate the rollout of digital virtual keys as a result of this behavior shift. And we're also seeing a lot of interest from companies that aren't yet there, who are still thinking about this maybe being 2-3 years down the road for them, now realizing that, hey, we may start doing this today to be a part of this trend.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes perfect sense. And clearly, if as a service provider or product provider, if you are not addressing the needs of our current consumers about safety and contactless ability, it's really going to be a hindrance to your business and the things that you do. Stellan, some thoughts from you on where we are, where we might be going?
Yeah. I think more from a global perspective, where we see, of course, the automotive sector in the second quarter had a huge dip in volume. But it's been very encouraging to see China coming back much faster than we anticipated. And unfortunately, I think we have a long way to go in the US, unfortunately. And we just have to wait and see what happens with COVID. But I think it's promising signs from China. It's turning around faster than we thought. And then I can also say that back in 2008, 2009, the US car industry made some severe changes in how they operated. So I think they're coming also a little bit better out of this compared to our European car manufacturers.
Absolutely. It makes perfect sense. Emily, I've got a little different twist for you that I'd like to get some insight on from you. One of the things that COVID has shown us is that with that abrupt halt in transportation demand and commuting, we were able to see some areas of the globe where we had cities that were generally covered in smog and pollution that were really able to come out of that with that break in our transportation habits and network. And I've got to think that EV has a place in this this new reality. And now that we know that if we do some things that we can make a difference, is that going to be a push for EV?
I think in some ways it will be a push for EV. I think there will be certain consumer demographics who felt that. I mean, I myself ride road bikes pretty avidly, and I definitely noticed a difference in the air quality where I live here in Colorado. The data I've seen so far shows that a good chunk of that decrease in transportation pollution was really related more to trucking and shipping, so less related to residential. I think there's also, a bit of wait and see in the data around whether, the higher price point for EVs, the lack of optionality, there still aren't as many models as I think we would all like for EVs, especially for consumers, to see whether that data kind of leads towards people buying more EVs and choosing to go that route, or if they're still going to, go maybe for a used car if they're more cost conscious and there's not as much of a used EV market out there right now.
Right.
So I think it still kind of remains to be seen. From the utility standpoint, there is some interesting data around how utilities are funding or defunding their EV programs and their charging infrastructure programs. So we've seen Xcel in the last week announce that they are continuing to invest in this space. We've seen other customers of ours, especially maybe in the central part of the country where there's not as much demand for EVs, start to dial back some of their programs. So I think that a lot of mixed signals, to be honest.
Sure, that makes sense. You haven't had to buy a new bike in the past 4 months, have you?
No, I'm all set on bikes. I already have 4, so too many.
It's a challenge, I can tell you. It's a challenge. Let's shift gears just a little bit. Let's move away from COVID, and let's go back to 5G for just a minute. Stella, let me bring you back in and give us some insights on 5G, the enhancements it's bringing based on what your team is doing, what Jay has told us about, and again some enhancements that we can expect to see in the near term and in the longer term as well.
Yeah, so I think Jay did a good job in his presentation, and it's really about much lower latency, the wait time delays, and then higher throughput. But I think it's going to be on the consumer side, the customer is going to drive the need, I think, for 5G services. And what we see now is in the future vehicle programs, they're going to introduce much larger screen. There's going to be more video, and video we know is very taxing on the connectivity, and that's where you need 5G. And then, of course, we talked about autonomous vehicles. That's still a little bit of out there. But with COVID, we also seen that the deliveries, remote deliveries. There was some. I think you showed a slide with some companies' references. So I think that has been helping the general consensus that this is okay. We can have autonomous vehicles out there and they're safe. And then 5G is also introducing some new concepts more for enterprises where we're going to have a feature called network slicing. So the mobile network operator can actually have different types of data streams to a car with different type of quality of service. And then, of course, you have to be able to pay for those different services independently. But I think it's more about the enterprises and then how the consumers will drive the demand. And then it's like when the iPhone came out, we didn't know what to do with an iPhone. I think it's going to be the same with this connected car. There's going to be a lot of smart people out there developing apps that we didn't had a clue that you can use for this thing. So
sure, yeah, we don't even know what we don't know, right?
Exactly.
We've got quite a blank slate out there to really understand. And it's been interesting. One of the things that I've seen in this space is a concern about how engaged we have consumers in crafting solutions that they really want to see and really want to use. I assume that's going to be a really important component as we move forward into this space. Other thoughts from our panel members? Any other 5G considerations that we should be thinking about that you have on your mind before we move on to the next topic? All right, nobody.
David,
Yeah, go.
Dave, I'll jump in for a second. So,
Yes, Tony. Hey.
I think it's sort of important to note when we talk about 5G, and I think your research in the beginning showed that consumers, although are aware of 5G, don't understand what the benefits are, right? And when you start talking about connected car, depending on who's talking about or how you're speaking about it, it gets collided with 5G connected car and features, and all of a sudden, a consumer thinks that autonomous driving is 5G, or infotainment is 5G, and sort of step back from the whole thing a little bit. The fact that connected car is really the ability for the vehicle to, we'll call it, connect to the cloud, right? And you could say it's expanded more if it's vehicle to vehicle and other areas. And there are many vehicles that are connected today. As you think about a very popular service like an OnStar, that's as a result of a connected car enabled vehicle. But the connections that were done when a service like OnStar was first put into place was designed focused on what its particular needs are. Today, a lot of people don't know that one of the companies or one of the industries that's connecting more cars than anyone else is the insurance industry. There's a port on a vehicle referred to as the OBD port that has become a standard in vehicles and across the globe right now. And manufacturers have leveraged that port as a connection to the network inside the vehicle to now put a cellular type of device so that those vehicles are now connected with the value proposition. I'm going to save money on your insurance by understanding what your driver profile is. So when we step back for a little bit, there's sort of a very high level understanding of what does connected car mean, and not to get it confused with it's OnStar or it's self-driving cars. And then as you layer in 5G, it's just thinking about, that connected vehicle on steroids, right? So now you've got a bigger bandwidth and you've got higher speed and hopefully more efficiency, both in cost and delivery of data in both directions. Now you've enabled everybody out there, all these innovative partners, to come up with the solutions across multiple categories. And, sure, driver performance and maintenance, vehicle tracking, navigation, security, but things like control and things like infotainment and already the car sharing sector has played a big part of that. There's a lot of innovation out there today where you could be sitting in a vehicle and driving, and it could be in the future being able to check you and your health and be able to understand and report what's going on. So what's going to come out of this in the future is anyone's guess, and some will be driven by demand and certainly delivered by innovation. But right now, 5G, all it means by itself is just a very strong bandwidth to the vehicle to enable connected car features that we haven't seen in the past. And it's going to be exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're dead on. And as you had mentioned in some of the earlier conversations that we had, it's important to have that contextual framework, right? And really understand what those components are. And you're right, the general public doesn't yet understand how it all fits together. And when we throw things at them like 5G, it's hard for them to understand what's really going on and what's really happening.
Right. And that exists today even with their smartphone, right? Yeah, everybody wants to have the latest, and you see your phone light up and it says you're on 5G, but to the consumer, does that really mean that they understand what services that's being delivered to them? You can imagine, that's still a challenge going to be faced with the automobile.
Yeah, absolutely. Sahas, just give you an opportunity to jump in here, because I know you had some thoughts and some of our earlier conversations about this as well. Yeah, we still have you. Awesome. Hi.
Absolutely. Wonderful. So what I was going to say about 5G, I think really is that we're seeing cars, at least we also see it, first of all, as car to cloud. It's an enabler to make that possible. Just to clarify the definition, since there are so many. And as we've heard, it's about making data transmission speeds faster. It's about reducing latencies. And one of the neat things that this does for the connected car space is that when you look at cars that now need software updates, even the leading brand like Tesla today still often asks you, hey, go wait till you're on Wi-Fi before your car gets a software update. And the reason for that is these downloads are getting larger and larger. It's harder and harder to push updates to vehicles. And with 5G, not only will you be able to download that faster, you'll be able to actually do it on a cellular network where you might not have been able to do it as efficiently on 4G. And even when it comes to some of the other convenience features, whether it's unlocking that rental car that you just rented, it may take a second or two to unlock that door to that car. And with latencies coming down, things of the sort are going to get even faster and more instantaneous. And you're going to feel that experience getting better and better as we move into the future.
Awesome. Yeah, agreed. Thank you. Let's switch gears just a little bit. Emily, I'm going to come back to you if that's okay with you. And you had started to talk about some of the connections between specifically electric vehicles and smart homes. So, part of our conversation is about that connection between the vehicles, the connected vehicles and the smart home. Can you give us a little bit more insight into some of the things specifically we can expect to see? How are electric vehicle batteries potentially going to be integrated into our homes, and how will these things connect and work together for us?
Yeah, I think there are kind of two vectors by which the connected vehicle, especially an EV, can be integrated into the home. I think in general, there's a smart vehicle, so being able to connect things, you take advantage of features like geofencing to do smart things with the home. So turn on your lights when your vehicle gets closer, as opposed to relying on just a phone for that type of information. Turning on your air conditioning, even having so using the onboard diagnostic support that was referenced earlier. There's actually a lot of GPS data that is available. So being able to use that data to, for example, say, it's not really going to be effective to pre-cool your home if you turn on the air conditioning when you're within 50 feet, but what if it's within 3 miles? And what if maybe you see that the vehicle is moving towards the home as opposed to just being parked in the parking lot at the grocery store nearby? So I think there's some neat things to do there that can help with both a consumer's experience and kind of more enhancements that would be available with that smart technology. Sure. As well as services that can be offered by home security services and the likes of that. For EVs specifically with the battery, I think there is a lot of potential just to use vehicle batteries to help smooth the demand, especially with more people being at home. We are seeing an increase in residential load, and being able to use EVs as a kind of a load smoothing function, or maybe even an ability to consume more renewables at strategic times, like using overnight wind generation, for example, I think could be really compelling. I think we're still a decent ways away from what we call vehicle to grid, where you're actually pushing energy back into the home. There's been some movement in terms of standards, in terms of regulatory changes that allow that to happen, but there still is a lot of work to be done. I think just on how are customers compensated for that energy, how if you think about having somebody roll up to your house and siphon some gas off of your vehicle and use it to run a generator that pushes back to grid, that would be kind of bizarre and a difficult thing for us to feel comfortable with. And it's kind of a similar construct with EVs. It's my battery, I own it. I want to be in control of when it's being depleted. So lots to work through there. But I think in terms of just kind of the managed charging and moving that load around, there's a lot of benefit to utilities, and they can pass on some of that benefit back to their customers through creative rates, rebate programs, that sort of thing.
Sure. Awesome. Great analogy. Thank you for that. That hits the spot for sure. We've got a question from our audience that I'm going to throw this out to Sahas and see if you've got want to take a shot at this. And the question is, most new cars have connectivity to automakers. The question is, why can't car companies offer an API for integrated connection to home apps? This could be an immediate benefit to the consumers. And I know the API world is up your sleeve. So your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think the fundamental challenge that OEMs face today are that they aren't necessarily have a background when it comes to creating a developer platform. APIs are at the end of the day becoming easier and easier to build, but offering an API for a pretty large product is actually something that's quite challenging. It requires having really amazing developer documentation, providing well-engineered SDKs, maintaining that whole experience consistently, coming up with a pricing system around that API, providing support around it as well. And even if they were to do all of this, at the end of the day, it would still be a very big challenge to get people to adopt using it. And part of why is there isn't a single OEM today that has 80% market share in the market in the US at least. And what that really means is that because it's pretty well fragmented, developers who are trying to build smart home integration between the car and the home would need to essentially repeat that process 20 or 30 times. And that's something that we've seen companies like us specialize in today to help address that challenge. And some of our partners, like Samsung SmartThings, are taking advantage of our platform to actually do exactly what was mentioned. So some of the cool things that you'll be seeing with the SmartThings platform, which is Samsung's, is in the near future from that application, you're going to be able to start warming up your car from an app on your phone or a voice assistant in your living room. If you're going to bed at night, you can, and forget whether you lock the car in your driveway, you can ask your Alexa or your Google Home or your Siri to do that for you. And if you even want to, as you're heading out to work, if you're not sure if you have enough gas in the tank, you can ask your assistant if whether that's the case or not, or even see that information on a smart display in your living room. So these are the types of things that are just the first wave of car to home, or home to car, I should say, integrations that are emerging. And over the course of the next few years, you're going to see that become more and more sophisticated with automation routines, alerts, notifications, and other types of things that automatically happen where you don't even need to take action for those things to be triggered or take place.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for that insight. I know I've been watching our polling questions, and I know our original polling question, the answer hasn't changed, that for the most compelling value proposition, autonomous vehicles still leads the group at 43%. But let's take a look at our second polling question, which is, what are the most compelling car-home crossover cases? And 48% of you have indicated that home integration with electric vehicle charging and battery storage is the most compelling car home crossover use case. And Emily, I'm thinking that's great news for you and probably not a surprise to you as well.
Yeah, I think there already are some interesting applications. I know with the Chevy Bolt, there already is built-in functionality to set what is basically a time of use rate or a smart charge rate on your vehicle as a default. So, for example, if your rate has a higher charge for, let's say, 2 to 6 p.m., your vehicle would by default not charge during that time period unless your battery charge was so low that it needed to in order to be done by your desired departure time. So there's already some really neat stuff available there. I think lots of work to be done, going back to the API conversation. I think there is a lot more that can be done, and a lot more from both a user experience standpoint and an integration into the rest of the home. Google, for example, is looking at integrating EV functionality or some basic commands into their Home Assistant. So definitely more work to be done on that front that I think could be really interesting. I will be intrigued to see, to the point earlier, if APIs start to become part of maybe a different revenue stream and a different business model for the vehicle OEMs. I have done some extensive work with GM, for example, and really the API development that they've done is pretty limited. They are unsurprisingly very reticent to share some of this data with third parties. It is pretty sensitive, right? It's your exact location, it's your driving patterns. There's a lot to be learned from that data. So I think that they are treading carefully at the, just to avoid the risks associated with that sort of thing. But I do see a lot more automation coming into play. It's unclear whether it will be, what the avenue will be, but I will not be surprised if it's kind of external players outside of the vehicle OEMs that push it, be it the big behemoths like Google or smaller integrations like Unomi, where people are used to integrating with these types of apps and used to being able to have access, and thus push the OEMs in that direction.
Absolutely. Thank you. Stone, let me bring you back in. We've got a question from one of our audience members asking us about the poor integration, with the exception of Tesla, of infotainment and smart car systems, that they tend to be islands that function separately and don't communicate well. What's your perspective on this, and how does that impact the ability of those services to really be utilized well and be of great value to the
Yeah, I mean, it's a big hill to climb for the traditional OEMs. I mean, first they're shifting the whole organization from more hardware-centric to a software-centric, and they're just learning, right, this software development aspects. And we see great progress with a lot of the traditional OEMs. That's going to feature a lot of great features going to be rolled out end of this year and next year. But again, it's a big learning curve for them. And we talked about APIs before. I mean, I think a lot of the traditional OEMs, they're selling on trust to the consumer, and it would just take one hack or a couple of hacks and a safety breach to destroy their brand name. So they're very cautious about opening up the APIs. But from an IVI standpoint, great things coming in the car. Voice assist, yes, it's coming, but it's going to take some time for them.
Sure, great. So one of the questions that we have from our audience is, Tesla has made a statement. They've made an impact. Are they going to continue to be one of the innovators in the field? Are they well positioned to take this on?
Well, if you look at their stock price, I guess the market thinks they are, but who knows, right?
I have some thoughts on that. So working with Tesla as well on both the storage side as well as the EV side, Tesla has really forced the industry forward on a lot of fronts, including autonomous driving. I have a Model 3, so I experienced some of the features there. But they, in the same way that they have innovated on, DC fast charging and availability of lots of data to their customers, they are very, very hesitant to share any of that information, and have not historically been very interested in working with across, kind of the proverbial aisle to work with other OEMs to standardize even the data that would go behind an API. So a lot of the underlying Society of Automotive Engineers specs that make all of this kind of work, they are not necessarily consistent with those specs. So while they may innovate, it could be kind of a long, tough road to standardize versus Ford and GM and some of the other automotive companies that are maybe a little bit less innovative, but more likely to collaborate. So that's a big challenge that I see going forward. If it's not, immediately accretive to Tesla's business model, it's less likely to happen.
Sure. While I've got you up, what about EV charging stations? They're becoming somewhat more available and more spread out. But where are we with that?
So again, I think Tesla did a lot of work to get EV chargers out there. Tesla can charge at most stations, but all vehicles can't charge at Tesla stations. So there is definitely some challenges as we start to see more penetration from other brands. The Volkswagen settlement, if folks are familiar with that resulted in EV America, or Electrify America installing, I think it's $2 billion worth of charging infrastructure across the United States over I think a 2-year runway. So I think we'll start to see a lot more infrastructure on that front. So definitely making strides there. I mentioned Xcel Energy earlier. So they're based in 5 different states around the country. They have some huge initiatives to work with both homeowners as well as small business owners to get charging infrastructure into their parking lots, to get those devices to be kind of managed charging elements so that we can ensure we're not overtaxing the grid, but also giving people the services they need.
Awesome. Great. Thanks. Tony, let me pull you in again. So one of the questions that we've received a couple times from our audience is this question about, I'll go back to trying to explain to my mother how to utilize her first iPhone, right? It was a challenge. It was new technology and really foreign. Are we seeing some of that in technology that's being integrated into vehicles, and will we continue to see that? Or will it be that these add-ons that are going into vehicles will be easy to understand, easy to use? What are the challenges there?
Yeah, I think it depends on, again, what category we're speaking to. I think the consumer today is expecting ease of operation across all of these categories. Even when you buy a brand new car today, I would say that most customers that are get in the vehicle and driving that car home doesn't have the depth of understanding of all the technology that's built in right from the factory. I spoke at a dealer association last year, and we even talked about car dealerships should have a technologist on staff, someone that after the vehicle is sold, that is going to spend that detailed time to focus on all the vehicle technology and make sure the consumer understands the benefits of those. That's a big part of the scope of work as we build out programs for our partners, of not just getting the technology installed and integrated in the home and the vehicle, but then also taking the time to make sure the consumer understands how to operate and what the real benefits are on those technology. As far as them grasping the whole, how does it all work and do I really need to understand it? Not really. They just need to understand and see the benefit of saying they want to do it. And and then the operational use case of that, right? Then it comes down to a user interface. I think the safety category in automobiles, which is a growing demand, is helping to drive that, right? So consumers understand and they can see through marketing efforts of OEs and even what's known as the ADAS system, the assisted driving technology that has come out a lot of solutions as a result of the investment in the autonomous driving. People realize now that they can drive down the road, unfortunately, try to text while driving, and the vehicle's going to stop for them. They may not understand how all that's working, or the standards and the technology that does that, but they can certainly see the benefits, and you're going to see those continue to grow.
Yeah, great point. Absolutely. So throughout the conversation so far, we have stumbled across the thought and the issue about the huge amounts of data that vehicles possess. And, as Jay alluded to early on, the ability to hack into cars, and that's got to be quite a wild ride when you lose control of your vehicle. From Parks Associates research, we really see a concern about data safety, data security through the survey work that we do. And we've seen that consistently for a number of years through households across the U.S. How are we going to deal with this as we move forward? How big of an issue is this? And have we made advances in how we're going to protect this data, this technology, and these devices that we're going to put into the hands of consumers?
Yeah, I can maybe tackle that question a little bit. I think that's something we think about every single day as we're serving a pretty large number of customers who have integrated and are actively using integrations with cars. I think the largest risks that we often see today is more often than not when uh, big organizations come together and do one-off custom integrations or partnerships. And part of why that occurs is, let's say a big, large OEM finds another energy company or a car rental company, and they'll do a one-off integration with a large systems integrator. And that project may get abandoned or not maintained 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down the road. They move on to the next thing. And you can't treat software that way. Software is something you have to continue maintaining, updating, patching, strengthening, and securing. So what we're starting to see is that there needs to be a new model around how end users, how applications, and how the car brands have to all work together. The end user at the end of the day needs to be the one who accepts a set of permissions to choose to link their car to an application of their choice, whether it's their auto insurance company, whether it's integrating it or linking it to their smart home assistant, or to their utility company to maybe get better rates. So the end user, first of all, needs to be in control. And then two, the OEM needs to ensure that the cloud infrastructure is secure so that the end user has the ability to actually make that choice, and they have a dialogue or an interface to actually control that. And that third party needs to also be able to integrate very easily with a large number of brands and cars, but at the same time, they need to be able to have a way to integrate while also collecting that consent to be able to make that transaction possible. And this model isn't unique. We already see this available in the market in other verticals. If you've ever connected your Robinhood stock trading app to your bank, you've probably gone through the process of linking your bank to that third-party app. If you've ever sent money to friends through a product like Venmo, you've used a way to link your bank to a product like Venmo so that you can make that transaction happen. And now what you're seeing through the work that we're doing in platforms like SmartCar is that you're now seeing the ability so that when you want to link your car to a product like Turo so that you can share your car out, you can go through the process of linking your car to that third-party application. And at the end of the day, it's that end consumer who has that voluntary control and ability to choose to log into their account, accept permissions, and say, yes, I want to link my car to this third-party application or product. And we think this ultimate model, which isn't rocket science, it's already there, it is now being brought to the automotive industry. And we hope that the world moves in this direction versus the direction that some have been trying to take it in, which is to find ways to aggregate and bulk and sell customer data.
Sure, absolutely. We're starting to run short on time, but I do want to open that question up to any of our other panelists before we wrap it up. I know that some others had some thoughts on this they might want to share.
Well, I think it's all about consumer confidence and, that assurance. And I think what's happening in the connected car space right now is you've got new innovative technology, and so you can create these isolated cases. But you look at the success of the consumer having a comfort level of sharing data for banking and stock trading and all types of things. The vehicle is going to be no different. The only part that changes is, yes, you can call out an example of things that you may have done that seem extreme, but it's also, again, at its early stage. At some point, the consumer confidence will get there when they see large brands able to execute in a larger volume, and they feel good about adding on, right? That they feel like they've achieved this for so many other users versus just a few. They don't want to be the guinea pigs that are out there in that space. But and going back to some of the other challenges around connected car, I think one of the non-technology challenges that really will end up, I believe, leading the day here are the business models. So, the OEs, we can talk about standard technology, we can talk about every car having an API, we can talk about everybody sort of opening up a development platform. But at the end of the day, they each have to go through, for stockholders or otherwise, what the business models are going to work for them, right? Does a vehicle turn into like a smartphone, where you're not going out and purchasing a vehicle and negotiating a price, you're determining your monthly fee. And, and as a result of that monthly fee, for having your vehicle online and sharing your data and doing other functions, there are different vehicles that you can get into that process. So it's really going to be the business models that are being developed and, sort of the balance with, as you mentioned earlier, some of these large brands not willing to chart that path and risking what's involved. I can give you a good example. We were involved with GM OnStar years ago, and they said, hey, we're going to make OnStar available for every vehicle, and let's put it in the aftermarket. And they rolled out a solution to be able to do that. So you can add OnStar by replacing the rear view mirror, and we helped build a program for them. But at the end of the day, when they realized that they were taking that brand and now tying it into a level of expectation for the consumer that was not a vehicle that they built, that along with other business models from a competitive edge, it became something that they eventually abandoned, right? So there's a lot of reckoning that these brands will need to do, and helping to develop the right business models that have them compete, but be open enough to meet consumer demand.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you. So
do we have time to? I just want to address the privacy concerns. Do we have time to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, please.
I think it will require some kind of regulation. I think European Union has been in the forefront there with the General Data Protection Regulation, and we see now California doing something similar. So I think from a privacy and at the trust perspective, I think that there's going to be some regulation that is needed. So thank you.
Awesome. Emily, last words from you, and then we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, I think we are starting to see, driven by GDPR, as referenced in some other regulations, a drive towards more nuance in what the data sharing entails, and opting into maybe different levels of data sharing, as well as, what is the actual benefit that you're getting from it. Just signing into BeLive here today, I had to accept terms that said that my YouTube videos could be deleted or modified, and I don't have YouTube videos, but that seems really strange. And so I think presenting that information to customers in a clear and concise way, so they understand what they're really signing up for and why, as well as what the benefit is going to be more important than ever when the stakes are, a $30,000 vehicle versus your YouTube content.
Great point. So, thank you so much to our panelists. This has been some great information, and we really appreciate you sharing your expertise and your insight, and really giving us some deep details on this sector and what we're seeing and where we think we're going. So I want to thank our sponsors again. Thank you so much for the support that you're giving us. Again, encourage all of our attendees to check our sponsors out through the application. And at now, the network discussion rooms are open. So highly encourage you to check out one of the network discussion rooms. One is going to deal with remote work and the connected consumer, and the other is going to continue with some 5G discussion and 5G use cases. So highly encourage you to get into one of those discussion groups and meet some of your peers and share your thoughts and your opinions on this as well. So again, thank you for joining us for our third in this series, and we have another 3 that we will be presenting to you, with the next event being September 16th, and it's going to be our Connected Health at Home, the next Smart Home Market event. And with that, thank you for your participation. Everybody stay safe, and we're all in this together. Thank you so much for your attendance. Thank you.